Leaders of the world have gathered at the Paris AI Action Summit, and India is ready to pave the way for global AI policy. And at this summit in Paris, Prime Minister Modi has called for a global effort to harness the power of artificial intelligence, emphasizing the need for governance that upholds shared values while addressing the risks that this technology poses. In fact, he said that AI is writing the code for humanity in the 21st century, underscoring its profound impact on economies, security, as well as society at large. Prime Minister Modi advocated for accessible technology, sustainable AI, and the importance of addressing cybersecurity threats. And highlighting India's leadership, he also shared how the country's digital infrastructure is really revolutionizing governance as well as economy, paving the way for an AI-driven future. With world leaders like French President Macron and US Vice President J.D. Vance in attendance, the summit marked a very important moment in global AI cooperation. Meanwhile, before we move any further, in fact, listen in to what some of these leaders had to say that really sets the stage for the kind of negotiations and finally the declaration that this summit is set to see.
India is building its own large language model considering our diversity. We also have a unique public-private partnership model for pooling resources like compute power. It is made available to our startups and researchers at an affordable cost. And India is ready to share its experience and expertise to ensure that AI future is for good and for all.
Seen this with Prime Minister Modi. This is the third path. We don't want a system of those who are in power and the rest are vassals. We want to have this serving the entire planet. And I don't believe that the world will be divided between the global north and the global south, just looking at one another, because if we want to have trust in artificial intelligence, we have to make sure there is equitable access to these innovations in all continents. And the example we saw from Prime Minister Modi earlier with the left hand and the right hand, we can see the different models. We want open source models and multiple sorts which reflect our diversity.
All right, let's get in Paridhi. Bhanot joining us live from Paris to talk to us about the latest that's unfolding. Paridhi, these comments that came in, the opening comments for the discussion, really set the stage for what's likely to happen. Talk to us about what's the latest that's happening. You are on ground covering this summit for us.
Absolutely, Gaurie. It's been a very interesting 3 hours. There have been lots of, conversations, discussions from global CEOs such as Sundar Pichai to, of course, our Prime Minister, the President of France. You have the Vice President of the US. You have the President of the European Commission. They've all talked. They've all put forward what they believe. And the summit is actually now coming to a wrap. It's ending. Prime Minister Modi has already given out his closing remarks, and he said that he welcomes the decision to set up the AI Foundation and the Council for Sustainable AI. He's also congratulated France and President Macron for the initiatives that have been brought up at the summit, and has assured that France has full support of India. In fact, Prime Minister Modi in his closing remarks has said, and I'm going to quote for you, "We must also make the global partnership for AI truly global in nature. It should be more inclusive of this global south and its priorities, concerns, and needs." So that is the closing remark that Prime Minister Modi has given as far as the AI summit is concerned. Of course, it's still yet to be seen what all countries come out and sign the declaration. But if reports that are coming from international news agencies as well as European media, if those reports are to be believed, then it seems that the US and the UK have not signed on the declaration so far. We believe that as far as the US is concerned, they have concerns about the wording of the declaration itself. And they have an issue with the fact that it's being called an
inclusive and sustainable. Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's the phrase. And in fact, I'll read that phrase out. It says, making AI sustainable for people and the planet. That is the specific phrase that the US has a problem with, and it seems the UK is, well, for want of a better phrase, getting cold feet to go and vote in favor against the US when it comes to this declaration. Paridhi, Bhanot, really appreciate you joining us to give us the very latest there. And before I open this up to my guests joining me this evening, let me quickly tell our viewers the big questions that we are really trying to decode and find solutions to and answers to. First is that what's really at stake for India at the Paris AI Summit? What is it really that AI can do when we talk about this summit for the economy at large? Second key question that I'll pose to the panelists in this conversation is, how will India really lead the global AI policy? What is it that India's key contribution can be? The next question that we will be putting out to our panelists is, will India really pave the way for the AI wave and the revolution to take place in the global south? Because there are cost efficiencies that India brings in. There are opportunities in terms of localization of content, indigenization of the AI model that India presents actually can be replicated. We put that out to the panelists in this conversation. And lastly, what's next for the AI mission, the India AI mission? 10,000 crores has been put in. 5 centers of excellence have been established. There's commitment. It's being backed by resources and intent. So what next in this mission? Let's quickly then get our panelists this evening. We have one joining in from Alabama in the US, Mr. Drumil, who is an AI tech and data science expert, and from Bengaluru, Sumanth Raghavendra, who's the CEO and co-founder of Presentations.AI. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining me in this discussion. Sumanth, let me start with you. The questions that I put out that really sets the context of why this matters to us, why this is so important for India and, of course, for the global south. My first question to you is, where do you see the India AI journey from here on, given that we've put out what all we have done, our ambitions and our potential on the global stage?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here. I think the first thing that we need to recognize is that there is this temptation or seduction to look at AI as being this, big boys club where just the large powers like the US and China play and all of us are laggards. But I think India has a unique opportunity to lead in this. And it's not so much about thinking about AI as being this output of large compute or good algorithms. It is more about figuring out how can we leverage the unique strengths that we have, right? Which is in the digital public goods like Aadhaar, UPI, DEPA, all of these wonderful, unique things that India alone has. How can we think of these things as being the digital backbone on which we can build a new kind of AI, which is, as the Prime Minister said, democratic, inclusive, open? I think that's our real opportunity. We should not lose the forest for the trees and view this as an arms race. We should think more in terms of first principles and try to figure out what India uniquely brings to the table.
Indeed. I guess, the fact is it's that perfect AI model that India can really build, which can be replicated. And of course, it's not an AI race at all. And probably that's what this summit is all about, creating that framework in which countries that have made early strides do not go ahead and leapfrog into the future, leaving some of the other poorer countries behind. Drumil, let me bring you in on this before I come to the summit part of it, because that's equally important, because the roadmap is a global common roadmap. Before I come to that, Drumil, how do you see the India AI mission from here on? 10,500 odd crore rupees, 5 centers of excellence. Areas that have been highlighted are agriculture, sustainable cities, being some of them that could be the focus areas for the government. How do you see that scaling up going forward in terms of technology-enabled solutions that are scalable in India?
Yep, absolutely. So India's AI journey isn't about catching up, but it's about leading with a new blueprint for the world. So while the US and China battle for AI supremacy, India is defining the governance model that balances innovation, safety, as well as inclusivity. And with the PM Modi's vision for AI 2024, India has made it very clear that AI isn't just a tool for corporations or governments, but it's a kind of a unique force for national and global development. And the focus is on AI for public good like healthcare, education, agriculture, governance, while ensuring ethical backgrounds. And India's approach at this summit was quite clear about responsible AI, scalable development and deployment, and international collaboration. And unlike the West profit first chaos or China's control heavy, AI is kind of creating a public first AI model. And with its platform approach, AI will be regulated but without stifling innovation. And if India scales this correctly, just like Sumantha said about like Aadhaar, UPI, and Covin, it won't be just a global AI player. It will set the gold standard for AI governance, ethics, and accessibility worldwide.
Indeed. Sumanth, which brings me to ask you, as far as the global framework that was pretty much the premise of this summit at some level, how important do you think that is for development of AI going forward?
I think there are two phases to this. One is, of course, as Prime Minister Modi said, I think there's a clear and immediate recognition of AI being a national priority, which is wonderful. I think that's something that's a good starting point. But I think it's equally important to match that rhetoric with concrete steps, right? So are we actually going to take all of these clarion calls to action and match it in areas like policy and infrastructure that the government is best equipped to lead? Right? I'm sure that, Indian companies have shown that you can build with AI. The question now is whether we actually have that matching intent and action on the ground in terms of policy and infrastructure to actually create those kinds of ambitions and have those unbridled opportunities to innovate like.
Indeed. Drumil, then the fact is a lot of the AI technology has actually been incubated in the US. In fact, JD Vance also said that over the course of the next 4 years, if $700 billion has to be invested in AI, almost half or maybe more of it is going to come in the US. The fact that US is not likely to sign the Paris Declaration, as reports seem to indicate, how do you see that impacting progress of AI going forward globally?
Yep, absolutely. So the US is kind of into pouring $700 billion into AI and emerging technologies. And they are kind of an undisputed leader right now in AI dominance, but yet they haven't signed the AI treaty. So the US views AI as a national security asset and not just a technology. And signing an international AI treaty would mean restrictions on military AI, advanced research, and corporate innovations, something which Washington isn't willing to compromise on. Unlike the nuclear or the trade treaties, AI isn't evolving a battlefield where dominance depends on who controls the most powerful models, chips, and data ecosystems. The US doesn't want global oversight limiting its AI edge, especially when China is aggressively developing its own state-backed AI with military applications. And I personally believe that another reason is economic leverage. US AI firms like OpenAI, Google, Microsoft own the most powerful AI models and datasets. And any global AI regulations could force them to share advancements, limit exports, or comply with ethical standards that hurt profitability. And the US prefers self-regulation and alliances with select nations over binding treaties that could slow down its own AI arms race. In short, AI is the new oil and the US isn't ready to give up its control.
Yeah, AI is the new oil. Sumanth, very quickly, I'm running out of time. The fact that US is not likely to sign this, UK may also follow suit. How important will be India's role in a situation like that, who's willing to partner with other countries to ensure that there's a global AI that is not available only to some?
Absolutely. I think there are two ways to look at this, right? One is to see this as an arms race, as a zero-sum game where there are winners and there are losers. And tragically, some countries seem to be seeing AI like that. And that's not a trap that I believe that India should fall into. Instead, we should see this as a positive sum game, right? There's an opportunity for us to have this democratic model that's inclusive, that's accessible to everybody in the world, and that benefits and impacts lives everywhere. Right? And I think India, therefore, has this unique opportunity to be the leader in that path, right? Rather than fall into the trap of trying to match arms with other countries, I think we should come up with our own agenda. We should come up with our own charter and how we can best leverage AI for impact. And I think we have already made a good start.
All right, gentlemen, stay with me before we address some of the other stories. Let me also quickly tell our viewers the bottom line as far as this issue is concerned. Well, there are two distinct models. There is the US model, which is private sector, big tech enabled model, where profit is the primary goal. Then there's the Chinese model, which is the state control model. But in between these two extremes lies what 99% of the world wants, or at least the poorer countries want, which is an AI model that is accessible to all, that's cost-effective and scalable, which is where India's role becomes so important. Its computation costs are a third of what they are in developed countries. India is already the third largest country in terms of startups and incubation and startup programs. Add to it the fact that we are the highest in terms of skilling programs and ensuring that we have skilled manpower more than by some indexes as compared to the US and Germany. All these means we tick the right boxes. We are in a position to create that AI model that the world can replicate, the global south can look at.